Welcome to Season 4 of the Lead with Coffee podcast, where we continue the journey into how you can change the culture in your business and your home through simple leadership practices. Grab a cup of coffee and get ready to join into today's conversation. Welcome back to Lead with Coffee. Today we're going to have a little fun. Do you ever run into those people where you're trying to understand what their plan is? And they just stare at you with this deep blank stare, and you're maybe talking about what's your plan for summer, what's your plan for vacation, what's your plan for this project or retirement, and they're just staring at you. And they have no plan. And you realize, that's their plan. That they have no plan, and they're just winging it.
So today we're calling this one, No Plan is the Plan. And having a little fun with it.
And if you're like me, I'm a planner.
Yes.
I plan things down to the details. I don't have to plan every minute of a vacation, but if I don't do my part, we don't get there. There's no flight. Or if we get there, there's no car or no house or no food. That takes planning. But there are people, God bless you, that can just fly somewhere and go, I'll figure it out when I get there. Like the backpackers around Europe. I so wish I could be that person that just could take a backpack. I'd be like, what's the plan?
Go from hostel to hostel, and
right.
when you get there, it's like, oh, there's no bed, so you're sleeping on the floor. Okay.
No way. I wish I could have done this in college. God did not wire me this way. But I think you're a planner too, clearly.
Absolutely. So yeah, I'm definitely on some things able to just go for it and figure it out as I go. But for the most part, yeah, I was wired to be a planner and have a big picture. Sometimes it's in my head and I haven't shared it, but I do. Yeah, I typically run off of a plan also.
I think there's benefits to both. If you're in business and you don't have a plan, you're not going to stay in business very long, right? You don't have to have a 40-page business plan to be successful anymore. You can Google one, by the way. But you do have to have a plan. You have to have a strategy. You have to know what your steps are. You have to know how to get there. And maybe you don't have every detail figured out, but you at least know what direction you're moving in, and you're bringing people with you to do it. But there are some who just can wing it. And I think as a high-level leader, these people are hard for me. And they're hard for you because it's like, we'll figure it out in the field. No, we won't. We are planners. That is the nature of our business. We're not going to wing it out there later, because if we want to serve people the way that we want to serve people with excellence, then we have to plan for all the details and have a plan B, because our experience says what they want isn't going to work. And we can wing it or figure it out in the field, or we can say, that's a great idea. There's a possibility that's not going to work. So what's our plan B? And here's what you're paying us to come up with, right?
Right. And it would be like, again, we are in construction. So it would be like, okay, the architect has the framing plan, the roof plan, the stucco plan, the drywall, the whole way to build the building, but we don't have a foundation. Couldn't get the structural engineer. So I think we'll just wing it when we get there, and we'll probably have to bring in some utilities, and we'll just figure that out when we get there too. And you cannot do that. A lot of people do that with TIs and maybe some home remodels, and you see it on some of these home remodel shows. It's like, okay, we've demoed, now we're going to pick the cabinets and all these things.
Now what? I have a hole in my wall.
Yeah, of course that is on TV, and they've already figured it out in the background, but it's a good story. But really, for the work that we have to do, we have to come forward with a plan. We have to explain to our client how long it's going to take, what the cost is going to be, what's the impact going to be, how long are they going to be out of whatever they're out of, or when can they move, and all these things have to be planned up front, or we're not doing our job and we're not going to be around very long.
Yeah. So let's talk about an area in life where if you don't plan, life's just going to happen to you. And maybe that's your retirement. So let's just say you're going to just keep working and you'll figure it out as you keep going along what's going to happen. But if you're not dreaming and you're not coming up with something that's going to spark your excitement and enthusiasm, you're just going to keep doing what you've always done because that's all you know. But what if a part of your plan is to dream bigger, to do more, to have a life that's fully explored, and that is finding hobbies or maybe totally changing your career or buying a coffee farm. You know, we can't just throw these things out there and say, we're going to retire and own a coffee farm. And we're going to get on a podcast and talk about it for years that we're going to do this. But no plan is the plan.
Right.
We're just going to get one. It's going to be fine. You know, I don't think it works that way.
No, and the plan can change because having just come back from the Big Island and looking at the coffee farms, we did some touring, which was really fun. We have a little bit different perspective on how we might want to approach this. And that's totally fine. You have to go through that to change the plan.
Yeah, your plan should change. If you're actually working your plan, then you're going to find that straight line is not a straight line. It's a windy road that has twists and turns, and there's different variables that are going to shift your perspective, and that's all part of the journey. Your plan doesn't have to be the start to finish. This is my only route. But you got to get on the road at some point and start figuring it out. And I think we see this in the younger generation that, well, my plan is to just go to college and I'll figure it out after that. And it's a good time to explore and start to figure things out. But when I went through college and when I came out and started working at the community college, what I told so many of the college students was, do work in the field that you're trying to get your degree in while you're getting your degree so you have some practical experience. If you just keep going through and get your bachelor's and get your master's and you have no experience in the field, you're never going to be looked at. Your plan for your future must also include some practical implementation.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, my background's different. I figured out that I was good with my hands and fixing things and building things. And so college to me, yes, I did some, but I wasn't going after the big degree. It just was never part of who I was. But I knew that I could do really well in facilities management and, you know, not as good with leading people. That was something I came through corporate, and that was learning how to become a manager and not a leader. And that's a whole other podcast. But it took me a while to come up with some sort of plan of where I wanted to go. And I think that transition happened it's been 23 years when I came to join my father at CBSI. Before that, it was, I started in facilities management at 18. And by 25, I'm like, oh, this is a pretty good gig, but I don't know where it's leading. And so it's like, okay, I have a chance to be part of doing the same type of work, but get involved in a family-owned business. Now, I didn't know where that was going to go either, but it seemed like, family business, close-knit. It seemed like it had a direction. It could lead somewhere, and that's kind of where I followed. But I did not go into college thinking I needed to get a degree in construction management or facilities management and follow that. Which I think I should have. I don't know if I would change it now, but I think if I was a bigger thinker back then and with a better plan, my directions probably would have gone a little bit differently than where I am today. Interesting. So yes, I am a planner, but I was better at project planning than like long-term planning, and I think that perspective has changed for me definitely over the last 10, 15 years.
Yeah, I think that's just part of growth and development, though.
Yeah.
I think, my point was not that everyone needs to go to college. It's just that if that's your path, don't just sit in class and think, when I get out, I'm going to be a doctor.
Right.
By the way, you have to go do the work, right? And so I think that there's kind of these funnels that teenagers, because we have 3 of them, that are coming through where it's like you're either college bound or you're trade school bound or you're ready for work. And there's no wrong path. I think that's the piece that we've seen nowadays. You can be a gamer and make millions of dollars and leave the rest of us in your wake, right?
But
it's whatever you're passionate about. You have to take that passion and build a career.
right, and so for our boys and for us as the parents, we understand that you really enjoy doing this work or go to this type of school, but it is the encouragement like, okay, I get that. Let's help them think bigger picture.
Yep.
Help them become better planners, because if you don't have a mentor or a parent or whatever that's helping you do that, how are you ever going to know?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's our job. And fortunately for our boys, their parents are two planners.
Doesn't mean they want our advice. And
That
that's what we're
true.
having to learn.
That is true.
Is that even though we have some wisdom, it doesn't mean that they want it or that they're ready to receive it. And so you got to plant a seed and back off and
Right.
see if anything grows. And if not, you got to know when to step into it. It's their life, but it's our job to make sure that they're as successful as they can be in whatever they're going after.
And just thinking about different things.
Yeah, and not just on today. I think, a lot of it is that, like, when they get out of high school, which is very controlled, and they get into college, and they have all this freedom to just think and go, well, maybe I don't really want to be in that little box that I thought I wanted to be in high school. And so I'm going to change my major lots of times. Like, change your major. That's not a big deal. But you're going to have to land on something.
Right.
And you're going to have to plan to move forward. You're
Right.
not just going to change your major for the next 10 years. That's no plan, right? So
Right.
you have to have a plan of how you're going to graduate. And then what are you going to do with that degree? Don't go get a degree in English literature if you want to be an auto mechanic. Make sure it matches what your plan or what your goals are. And so for us, we have said that you don't have to do college, but you're going to do something. You're going to get a certification. You're going to do a trade school. You're going to do something, because life's going to pass you by if you have no plan, right? If you're just going to go to work, you're
Yeah.
never going to get to where you need to get, especially with houses at $1 million.
Right. And I think
Everywhere.
some of the best advice I got, and it's probably been 15 years now, was a year is going to pass regardless. And so a year from today, are you going to look back and say, I haven't done anything, I'm still where I was before? Or are you going to look back and say, look how far I've come? And the only way to do that is to set some sort of plan, some sort of goals, and keep consciously think about that. 6 months from now, if you look back, have you changed anything? Mm-hmm. Have you gone after the big dreams that you said you were going to? We've talked about it 100 times. Dream big, but you got to step into it.
Mm-hmm.
And our last podcast, one of our last podcasts, was talking about looking in the rearview mirror. Look back there to see where you were, but the windshield in front of you is a lot bigger, and you got to move forward into it. But it's important to look back and say, have I gone anywhere, or is the car still in neutral?
Right. And I think there are areas in your life where no plan is the plan, right? There are times where you need to not be a planner. And that's what we do when we go on vacation. Yes, we have to plan up to a certain point, but we've learned that once we get there, maybe we have one thing planned and everything else is just, what do we feel like doing today? What adventure do we want to have today? And some of those adventures, like on David's birthday when we decided to go to the coffee farms, and God had another plan, and he was going to make it pour rain the entire time we were on the island, especially when we wanted to go get coffee. And so we're driving up the hill while the flood's coming down the hill, and it was the best day on the island as we were on this adventure into Jurassic Park, right? What is going to jump out and eat us? But it was so fun when you finally get to the destination and go, that was a crazy journey, and we had no plan of coming up here, but this was my favorite part.
Yeah, I agree. There are definitely times where no plan and winging it is great, and we do, try to do that when we go on vacations. It's like we got here, we have home base, but every day we're going to create a new adventure with no real plan. And yeah, we have gone all around Hawaii and rode to Hana, which is crazy. This was different
that
though.
Takes a plan.
Yeah, this was different because you're literally going up this windy road up this mountain that you don't even know where you're going to land at. It's like, how is there anything big here? Because everything's so small. This road's tiny. If you want to pass somebody, you got to pull over. And all of a sudden it opens up and here's this massive coffee farm. And this is the hills of Kona. And then you drive up another 4 miles, still climbing, and boom, wide open. Here's another coffee farm. And it's just such a cool adventure because we did not know what to expect. And those 2 coffee farms weren't even 2 that we necessarily had thought about going to, but we saw a couple signs and we're like, okay, let's give it a try.
Yeah.
And it was a blast.
Yeah. I think about the alternate to like when you're a planner like us. It's like if you just clench your fist really, really tight, like do it right now while we're talking, and then flip your hands over and just open them up. And just feel like the release of that. Having no plan for a planner, it's hard to open your hands and just release and be like, I'm going to go with this, but I'm going to secretly have a plan for every single day. It's hard.
Yeah.
But when you let go and just go like, I'm going to be okay with not knowing the outcome of this.
Well, go ahead.
But our plan was to get there, right? So you still had something, but when you don't know the outcome, but you can still enjoy the journey and know that you have a desired result, not having every step along the way figured out can be so fun.
Yeah. So let me ask you this question, because I know your perspective has changed on it. When you first started working with us and started getting involved in moves, being a planner, and then when you get into the field, it's a constant change of having to deal with whatever happens. There's, not enough guys showed up. There's a delay. You can't get into a room, all those things. And before you were just like, no, it has to work this way. This is what our plan says. These are the people that are supposed to be here at the time. And you've changed over this last couple of years of like, okay, I get it. I have to open my hands a little bit and let it release and kind of go with it. What's that been like for you?
Yeah, I think this industry is so different. I didn't come here to be in the field and serve clients, but the reality of small business is that. It's a whole nother podcast, David. You opened up the can of worms, but I don't think it's all that different from serving any kind of client. You can go in with your plan, but part of that change management and servant leadership is just realizing that none of this is about the end result if I can't get the people there with me.
Right.
And so that's what I think what really occurred to me in the field. I'm always someone that's a processor, and I'm analyzing, and I'm failing that day, but I'm going to come back tomorrow with a whole new strategy that's going to shift it upside down, because it's like that plan sucked and it really failed and we did not implement that well, or everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. So now I'm not just doing damage control. I need to flip the script and show this client that hey, we're in it together. Let's figure this out. But I think that my perspective definitely changed, and that's where we started creating the stoplight effect and the models on change management, and learning about the difference of change management versus transition management, because it's like you can plan for the change, but if you don't actually transition people through it, you will fail every single time. And so I think that was the perspective shift, and just the growth as a leader of wow, this industry is unique in that a lot can go wrong really quickly. And I think that's in anything in construction or relocation. I don't think that it's unique. One error can blow a circuit for an entire city, right? There are big things that can go wrong. So you got to plan it, right? You have to be ready to shift.
Well, and so that's kind of what I was getting at, that your perspective did change, and it changed us, because we were about the process and knowing that we have to shift when things don't go well. But the perspective that you brought in was the end user factor of what's their experience, and not only during the move or after the move, but we kind of changed how we were doing things leading up to the move, and it was all about the user experience. Yeah. And we always had a plan, and we always got it done. And people left on Friday and came back on Monday, then go right to work, and it could have been a nightmare and a mess over the weekend, but they didn't experience that And we thought that was enough. And the perspective you brought in was a different way of looking at it and helping the end user be prepared for it going into it. Instead of just a space, it's about their whole experience. And so we changed the way we plan things based on the perspective that you saw, which was totally different, and that was great for our business.
Yeah, I think that's part of having diversity in your organization, because if you have everyone that has the same strengths and the same vision, you're not going to see that. I didn't come in here to be the process person. I came in here to be the people person.
Yeah.
And so when I got stuffed into the process, it's like you put a people person in a process, right? And so what is a people person always going to do? We're going to be analyzing how do we serve people better, because that's like how we're wired, right? And we can still do process, but we're wired in a way that's like the people going through this process are having a really bad time. Like, what's going wrong with this process? Yes, we're getting the widgets done, but is anyone enjoying it? No, right?
And so the other perspective on that, to go back to the title of this, No Plan is the Plan, where we have seen it where things go wrong over the weekends, whether it be a construction project or a move, and the mover or the contractor just gives up and says, well, I can't fix it this weekend, we'll deal with it next week. And their no plan creates a incredibly impactful bad experience to the end user.
Yeah.
And which for us is unacceptable, because you never want that. And just that mindset of like, well, I don't know what to do. And, you know, I've been here for 13 hours today and 15 hours yesterday. I'm tired, so I'm just going to go home and we'll deal with it tomorrow. That no plan is the plan mentality just is not good enough.
Yeah, I don't think you can be in an industry today and not have a plan A and a plan B and a plan C. You know, like we're in a season right now where we've come through this really crazy couple of years, but we're not just sitting here going like, whew, we made it. Let's just sit back and hope things work out. It's like, ooh, how do we set ourselves up so that way when this happens again in the fall, we're ready to go. We know what to expect. We've got some contingency plans in place, and our team is ready, because we've been having conversations about how we serve clients when this happens again, because it's not a one-off. There'll be a new crazy thing that happens in the world, right, that you have to deal with. And so I think it's just all perspective as leaders, and realizing that life is great to just be whimsy and go with the flow, and maybe you want to just travel and live and work out of a van and go to a different beach every day. Guess what? You still have to plan where the gas stations are. You still have to think about, what am I going to eat? Where am I going to get food? You know, all these things are ingrained in you. You're not really thinking about it. But if you want to live a life of freedom, you got to plan for it, right? Plan now for the future you want. So that way when you're ready to have no plan, and that's the plan, that's what we want. We want that house in Hawaii, whether we own the coffee farm or not, who knows? But we want to get up every day and go pick a beach. We don't have a plan, right?
Yeah, and so, you know, just to finish this off, you have to decide, are you going to control your schedule, or are you going to let your schedule control you? And if you can control your schedule enough by planning, it's going to give you the margin you want in the future to do the things that you want to do more, or other opportunities to do other things. So no plan is the plan. Works sometimes, but not all the time. So if you're like us, plan for the plan. We appreciate that you decided to hang out and spend some time with us discussing life and leadership. It would mean the world to us if you would share this episode on social media to increase our online presence. If you enjoyed the episode, please take a minute to rate it and review it wherever you listen. Mahalo!